Today is the most important day for these high school graduates. In the second classroom of the senior year students, the air was thick with tension and anxiety. In our world, we have a college entrance exam. And for the students here, tomorrow marked the day of the awakening trial, an assessment that everyone has mixed feelings about. John, wake up, stop sleeping. A boy anxiously nudged our protagonist John, who seemed to be joyfully enjoying his afternoon nap. Blinking his sleepy eyes open, John's expression shifted from drowsiness to surprise as he took in his surroundings. He found himself back in a classroom amidst the buzz of chatter. Suddenly, he stood up, drenched in cold sweat, panic evident in his voice as he questioned, "Where am I?" Then a flood of memories rushed into his mind. The planet he is standing on is called Blue Star, a world much like Earth with modernized cities, familiar streets, and existing nations. Perhaps this was a parallel universe, he wondered. In this world, a catastrophic event that happened a century ago drastically altered everyone's life. Vicious monsters emerged from the skies, wreaking havoc on humanity, causing countless deaths and massive destruction. The people of Blue Star, however, were blessed with innate talents that could be awakened. Bypassing the awakening trial, individuals could then unlock a path to unique professions such as assassins, mages, hunters, warriors, or support, just to name a few. Only these powerful awakened individuals are capable of combating the monsters. Those who failed to pass the awakening trial were doomed to a lifelong mediocre existence. The division between the awakened and everyone else in terms of wealth and social status was immeasurable. Thus, the world focused on nurturing awakened, the elites of this world. And tomorrow, June and everyone in the senior year would have to face the awakening trial. In this world, the awakened possessed unimaginable wealth, formidable abilities, and countless followers. As June pondered over his bizarre situation, a sudden realization hit him. All of these memories and the plot of this world seemed eerily familiar. It was just like the game he had played before. What was it called again? Right, it was Apocalypse Online, which was the most popular open-world MMORPG with exceptional gameplay and freedom, a global phenomenon back in the day. Gulping, June started to process what was going on. He looked at his hands in disbelief. He had somehow e-sacried into a world where game and reality seemed to merge. In his previous life on Earth, in the game Apocalypse Online, he played a warrior class and reached level 999, a breath away from ultimate victory in Apocalypse Online. He had defeated countless monsters and players, earning the title of the GOAT. But things did not go all well. After defeating countless monsters, he finally arrived at the final room. What held him back was the cooldowns on his skill and the lack of damage. He was swarmed by an endless horde of monsters summoned by the final boss, just mere steps away from the final boss. What lay between them were hundreds of powerful elite monsters. He was exhausted, his health and mana depleted, and his equipment shattered, defeated and kneeling on the ground. His vision blurred as he was overwhelmed by the horde of monsters. Seeing the large letters of defeat on his monitor, angered. He pounded his keyboard, frustrated and unwilling to accept this end. What followed up was the screen glowed with the red words of death. He was so close, yet so far, and next thing he knew, he was ice-skite into this world. Jun's reverie was interrupted by a chubby student sitting next to him, who nudged him. He questioned why was Jun daydreaming, as he was so anxious that he began to tear his hair out. Hong said. Jun turned to Chub, whose nickname was Chub, looking surprised, exclaimed and called out Chub's name. Just like in his past life, Chub was his loyal friend and the best buddy during their time in school. Looking at Chub's familiar face and how he seemed to have butterflies in his stomach, Jun suddenly felt this world had its own charm. He gripped Chub's shoulder, saying he couldn't believe to see Chub in this world too. Chub, a bit startled, didn't understand what he was talking about and thought Jun was joking. Seeing Jun's relaxed demeanor made him even more anxious. Chub knew Jun was smart and always did well in school, but he himself was fraught with worry. He grabbed his hair and became even more anxious. Jun smiled, reminiscing that in this world, Chub, both the looks and personality, remained unchanged. It seemed his relationships and life in this new world weren't much different from before. Chub looked at his best friend Jun with tears welling up in his eyes. Clutching Jun, he broke down, revealing his dread for the upcoming awakening trial. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and failing the assessment would not only be a personal disaster, but would also mean facing his father's wrath. Jun, recalling his past experiences in the game, remembered that the term awakening referred to players touching the awakening stone in the assessment's secret realm, and that is the only way to activate a person's innate talent. However, he wondered if it was the same here. After getting to know more, it seemed this world operated on similar principles. Chub, whispering into Jun's ear, begged for his help in the upcoming trial. With a smile, Jun asked, how did Chub want him to help? Chub, with a comedic expression, said he didn't need to shoot for the stars. He just needed to do the bare minimum to satisfy his father. Chub knew Jun was known for his cleverness and resourcefulness, and wondered if he could pull off a last-minute miracle. Although Jun had inherited a wealth of memories, he knew that the game's tricks and strategies might not fully apply in this new reality. The extent to which this world mirrored the game and why he was here were mysteries he needed to unravel himself. Standing up, Jun reassured Chub he could count on him. He decided to visit the practice arena to figure something out. As he left the classroom, Chub, filled with newfound hope, shouted after his best friend and even said if he could pull this off, the entire year's lunch would be on him. With a cool gesture, Jun left, determined to find a way to help his friend in this strange yet familiar world. Jun swiftly arrived at the practice arena, a vast space bustling with students. In the center stood a shimmering oval-shaped portal, constantly radiating white light, where students continuously entered and exited the practice secret realm, quite a lively atmosphere. There were also several staff and teachers present to maintain order. Approaching the portal, Jun observed various students discussing strategies. Some debated that they should have gone for the easier mobs first, while others argued it was a waste of time and mana. A other party of two, supporting each other, exited the portal, looking utterly exhausted. Taking a deep breath, Jun was eager to see what this amalgamation of game and reality had in store. He smiled and stepped into the portal. A flash of white light transformed his surroundings. No longer in the practice arena, Jun found himself in a forest, facing a suspension bridge leading to a small village. The setting was sunny, complete with the chirping of birds. Scanning the area, Jun was stunned. It was the beginner village from the game, replicated perfectly down to the last detail, but his surprise didn't end there. The mechanical voice rang in his head, system detecting host. Binding transformation system, progress 50%, 70%, 100%, binding successful. Jun, puzzled, wondered what exactly is this transformation system. To answer his question, a window appeared, confirming the successful binding of the transformation system, currently level 1. Quite a shocker to acquire a system in Isekai. Oof, shocker, right? Anyway, reading through the system's description. It stated that the transformation system could convert 2 active skills with specific conditions into an extra passive skill, the power of which was enhanced by the character's primary attributes. Jun was baffled yet intrigued by this functionality. To explain what's going on in the game Apocalypse Online. Most skills were active skills, with passive skills being a rare commodity. He knew that active skills had cooldowns and couldn't be triggered indefinitely. Passive skills, however, were different. They were always present, depending on trigger probabilities. Higher levels of passive skills meant higher trigger probabilities. Jun clenched his fists, reminiscing about his previous inability to defeat the final boss due to skill cooldown restrictions. Now, with this passive transformation system, he hoped to overcome that shortfall. Carefully, Jun opened his skill panel, greeted by rows of familiar skill icons. The system prompted him to choose a skill to transform. His options included uppercut, wave slash, slide tackle, and weapon switch. Finally got glimpses of what was going on, and Jun decided to transform wave slash first. Upon his selection, a sword materialized in his hand, accompanied by a system notification. Wave slash level 1 acquired, a powerful upward strike that releases a wave. An AOS skill, attacking and knocking back enemies. The skill then transformed and granted him a new passive ability, granting him a 30% chance of triggering another wave slash, but this time it deals more damage. Also granting the users only 2 seconds of invincibility. Good, but not broken. Jun, initially surprised, swung his new sword a few times, marveling at the new passive ability and the significant damage boost. Now the real game begins. Just then, he heard footsteps and heavy breathing from behind. Looking up, he saw a massive minotaur approaching. The creature, missing one horn and bulging with muscles, wielded a giant axe, its bloodshot eyes fixed on Jun. Jun recognized the beast as a level 3 minotaur, one of the more challenging foes in the beginner village. As Mo gradually entered the minotaur's attack range, the minotaur bellowed, tongue lolling, and charged at Jun with its axe raised high. Jun didn't flinch. Instead, he readied his sword, eager for a real battle test. His sword swung, triggering wave slash, sending a powerful purple wave that knocked the minotaur back several meters into a tall rock. He had exerted his full strength in that strike and watched intently. As the mist cleared, the minotaur rose unscathed, its eyes now glowing a fierce crimson. Enraged, it leapt into the air, appearing above Jun in an instant and slammed its giant axe down. Jun dodged continuously, attempting counterattacks with his sword. Unfortunately, his current attributes were insufficient to defeat a minotaur in a berserk state. At that critical moment, Jun found himself cornered, with the minotaur's axe mere inches from his head. He raised his sword in a desperate attempt to block, but the inferior weapon stood no chance against the mighty axe. Shortly after, the sword shattered completely. However, in that split second, the passive wave slash triggered, granting Jun 2 seconds of invincibility. Without hesitation, Jun used the remnants of his broken sword to forcibly unleash the Minotaur slash. Enhanced with a 1/5 times damage multiplier, he crouched and then thrust upwards, stabbing fiercely from the Minotaur's chin into its skull. The creature howled in agony, dropping its weapon and crashing once more into the distant rockery. After a brief struggle, it lay motionless, defeated. As the Minotaur's body dissolved into the ether, Jun's face lit up with an exhilarated smile. Looking at his hands, he realized that transforming his skills into passives not only solved the cooldown issue, but also significantly increased his damage output, addressing all his previous problems. Gazing at the distant sunset, a fiery resolve ignited within him. Clenching his fists, Jun resolved that in this world, he would rectify the regrets of his past life. Suddenly, a giant mantis monster appeared behind Jun. Reacting swiftly, he plunged his broken sword into the creature's head, causing green blood to spurt out. Jun then spun around 180 degrees, yanked the sword out, and kicked the mantis's corpse away. After hours of relentless combat, Jun was utterly exhausted. Surrounding a large tree were the bodies of hundreds of different monsters he had defeated. Panting heavily, Jun examined his nearly shattered short sword, reflecting on the familiar sensation of battle from his past life. Having trained for hours in this realm, he felt confident about helping Chubb awaken his talent in tomorrow's assessment. But first, he needed to have Chubb get him some intel about the assessment. The system suddenly reappeared, prompting Jun to select a second skill for passive transformation. Opening the skill interface again, Jun stroked his chin, contemplating his next choice. Considering that his shortcomings were insufficient attack power and long skill cooldowns, and having already chosen Wave Slash, Jun selected Weapon Switch for transformation. The system confirmed Weapon Switch acquired. Weapon Switch initially had a cooldown, but after successfully transforming it into a passive skill, now the skill permanently reduces all weapon switching cooldowns by 30%. Jun opened his backpack, surveying an array of beginner weapons. Long swords, short swords, daggers, hammers, axes, and more. With the new passive ability, he realized he could swiftly switch between these weapons during combat, enhancing his flexibility and strategy. Jun's lips curved into a satisfied smile as he opened his character panel, revealing detailed information. The panel displayed his name, race, and level. Currently at level 1, he was just 100 experience points away from leveling up. His attributes, strength, agility, intellect, and vitality, each stood at 20 points. Each attribute impacted different aspects of his abilities. Strength influenced physical attack power, agility affected critical hit rate, evasion, and attack speed, intellect influenced mana regeneration and spell damage, and vitality affected health and stamina. Jun had 2 passive skills, Wave Slash and Weapon Transformation, with a combat rating of 500. Ready to head out, Jun exited the practice area. He stepped through the portal, ready for the next day's assessment. The day arrived quickly, and the hall was packed with spectators. Thousands of students stood in the center, fully armed and ready. They all waited for their chance to awaken their talents. Close to Jun, 2 students were checking their weapons and potions. Suddenly, Chubb's voice rang out from behind. He ran towards Jun, holding something in his hand. Using the power of money, Chubb had convinced his father to bribe someone and acquire the map of today's assessment. Last night, Jun messaged Chubb to try his best to obtain more intel for the assessment. Though puzzled, Chubb had obliged. Chubb's voice was quite loud. Jun told him to lower his voice. Chubb immediately covered his mouth and then quietly shared his excitement. They moved to a corner where Chubb unfolded the map, revealing that today's assessment would take place in the Ragefire Chasm, chosen by the most strict of them all, Professor Liu. Chubb believed the difficulty of this secret realm would be high, given Professor Liu's reputation for rigor. After hearing about the Ragefire Chasm in the back of his mind, Jun was familiar with this novice map, where monster levels ranged from 3 to 10, not too difficult for him. However, for Chubb at his current level, it would be a challenge. Jun turned to Chubb, asking him about the highest level of elite monsters he had managed to solo in the novice secret realm. With a hint of embarrassment, Chubb fiddled with his fingers and sheepishly admitted that 5 was probably his limit. Jun sighed internally at Chubb's lack of strength and prepared to use some shortcuts to help his friend. Their conversation, however, had attracted unwanted attention. A blonde-haired boy named Richard, flanked by 2 sidekicks, approached with a mocking tone. He ridiculed Chubb for trying to take shortcuts because of his wealth, then began to make fun of his dad. Richard, a rich brat from the neighboring class, whose father was a direct business rival to Chubb's father, always looked for ways to undermine Chubb. Chub, infuriated, rolled up his sleeves, ain't going to let that slide. Jun, noticing the anger in his best friend's eyes, quickly stopped him, urging him to stay calm. Chub protested, eager to put Richard in his place. Richard, energized by Chub's anger, taunted them further, saying Jun was wise to hold Chub back, knowing he couldn't win. Just then, Jun subtly tripped Richard with a swift move of his foot, causing him to fall face first to the ground, eliciting laughter from the surrounding crowd. Chub was also shocked. Jun quipped, telling Richard no need for such a grand apology. Richard made a fool of himself in front of everyone and stood up. His face became red from earlier embarrassment. He glared at Jun hatefully, never having imagined Jun, who used to be unnoticeable, would dare to take the initiative against him. "You're seeking your own death," he cursed, then swung a punch at Jun. But to his surprise, Jun caught it effortlessly with one hand. Richard, regaining his composure and pondering Jun's surprising strength, listened as Jun proposed a bet. After Jun let go of him, Richard rubbed his sore wrist and scoffed at the wager. Turned out that Jun said the wager was to see whether Chub would score higher than Richard in the assessment. The noisy crowd around them fell silent at this bold challenge. Richard and his sidekick couldn't help but burst into laughter, finding the bet absurdly easy. Richard disdainfully agreed, setting the stakes. The loser would run 10 laps around the field butt naked and shout 3 times that the winner was their father. Jun smiled and accepted the bet, causing Chub, drenched in cold sweat, to simply just stare at his best friend in disbelief, speechless. The audacity of the bet shocked everyone, including the teachers maintaining order. The gap in abilities between Chub and Richard was well known. One was the worst student, the other a top performer. After the trio left, Chub became anxious, whispering his concerns to Jun. Jun gestured reassuringly, but Chub was close to tears, lamenting his simple wish to pass the assessment and impress his father, not expecting such a turn of events. Clearly, he had no confidence in himself. Jun watched Chub's frustrated expression, holding back his laughter, and then pulled him up, whispering a plan into his ear. No one other than Chub could hear what Jun said, but Chub's expression transformed from panic to surprise, and then to overwhelming excitement. He eagerly asked Jun if it was possible, to which Jun nodded with a smile. Chub then stood up, shouting that today he would make Richard run laps while calling him daddy. The crowd watched, utterly bewildered by this bold declaration. Then, a middle-aged man approached the center of the stadium, drawing everyone's attention by coughing into the mic a few times. He was the dean and a second-class transfer professional. Without missing a beat, he announced the start of the assessment. As the candidates entered the portal one after another, Chub flexed his biceps before stepping in, confidently telling Jun to watch his performance. As was Jun's turn. A flash of white light transported him into the rage fire chasm. The heat in the secret realm was intense, with lava everywhere. The familiar environment of the massive volcanic cave, rumored to be the dwelling of evil orcs and demons, stretched out before him. The front part of the chasm consisted of several small platforms suspended above the lava, connected by narrow pathways where one misstep could mean falling into the scorching molten rock. To reach the final boss of this map, players had to climb rugged mountains. "It feels good to be back in a novice secret realm," Jun mused, rubbing his wrists. Taking a deep breath, Jun quickly moved deeper into the secret realm, following the route he remembered. He soon encountered 2 monsters, grotesque, muscular green-skinned orcs, known as Burning Blade Acolytes, armed with sharp daggers. The moment their eyes met, the acolytes charged at him. The sudden attack startled Jun, but he easily dodged it by leaping backward. However, 3 more appeared behind him, quickly surrounding him. Experiencing in real life was different from playing on a computer. Now, unlike controlling the keyboard, this was a real physical battle. Jun pulled a beginner's sword from his backpack. The monster's speed and strength were notably greater than the weakened creatures he had faced in the practice arena. Surrounded by the 5 monstrous orcs, Jun realized that fighting 1 against 5 was a daunting task. Suddenly, the system notified him that his vast gaming experience had been converted into instinctual bodily responses. Jun was surprised, thinking even this could be turned into a passive ability. He felt a remarkable change in his body, as if a surge of strength had filled his muscles and bones. What he could do in the game was made into muscle memory. As 2 orcs lunged at him, Jun dodged with uncanny agility, then leaped an astonishing distance onto a wall. Using the wall for leverage, he propelled himself back towards the orcs, delivering a powerful kick to one of them, sending it flying several meters away. The orcs were momentarily stunned. With his sword in hand, Jun felt a rush of excitement, adapting to his new capabilities. This transformation ability was incredible. He could control every muscle in his body with precision. He coldly eyed the remaining orcs, now confident in his newfound prowess, and taunted them to attack together. Sensing Jun's challenge, the 5 orcs charged at him in unison. Jun masterfully dodged their attacks, skillfully maneuvering them into a line. Seizing the opportunity, he executed a swift sliding tackle, sending all 5 orcs into the air. Then turning swiftly, he unleashed Wave Slash. In an instant, a burst of purple light emanated from his sword, forming a circular wave that struck all the airborne orcs. But it didn't end there. The passive Wave Slash triggered, unleashing an even more potent attack. The combination of the active and passive Wave Slash was devastating. The 5 burning blade acolytes were obliterated, soon their bodies crashing heavily to the ground. Since Jun performed what the system called a special move to defeat the orcs, he was rewarded with a 50% experience bonus, amassing a total of 250 experience points. This rapid gain propelled him straight to level 3, and his body was enveloped in 2 golden glows of level up. Excitement sparkled in Jun's eyes. The additional experience from a special kill was an unexpected boon. Defeating just 5 monsters had catapulted him to level 3. This world is much more intriguing than the game, he thought. Feeling increasingly engaged with this new reality, he continued his journey deeper into the secret realm, contemplating the numerous tactics he could employ with his array of beginner skills and weapons. Meanwhile, back in the assessment hall, a large screen displayed the information of all participants. The rankings on the screen were constantly changing. Suddenly, a name that shot up to level 3 captured everyone's attention. It was none other than Jun. Students from the first and second years watched the screen in excitement, amazed to see someone level up twice in less than 5 minutes. Even the dean also noticed the leaderboard. The name Jun only vaguely registered with him, sparking curiosity about what other surprises this student might bring. Back in the secret realm, Jun swiftly navigated several platforms until something caught his eye at a corner, prompting him to halt. He spotted a few cloaked figures not far ahead, 3 shadow warlocks, each accompanied by a hunting hound. Jun scanned the area and a brilliant idea struck him. He recalled a bug from his past gaming experiences that, if exploited successfully, could simplify leveling up significantly. Quickly, he took out a grappling hook gun and fired it upwards, landing atop a large boulder with a commanding view of the warlocks below. He then pulled out a small dart and threw it at one of the shadow warlocks. The dart didn't cause much damage, but it drew the attention and pulled the aggro of all 3 warlocks. As they looked up and began to cast spells, their progress bars for shadow bolts slowly filled. Jun stepped back and hid behind the rock, knowing that low-level shadow warlocks only had 2 skills, summoning hunting hounds and casting shadow bolts. He was confident his plan would work. With Jun out of their line of sight, their casting was interrupted and their progress bars reset. Jun was happy with how things were going as planned, pleased with the effectiveness of his strategy to exploit their line of sight. He then resumed his attack, throwing more darts to eliminate the warlock's hounds before retreating back behind the rock, causing another interruption. Then, an amusing scene unfolded. With their hounds killed, the warlocks simultaneously began summoning new ones. Jun couldn't help but feel exhilarated as his plan was working perfectly. He had remembered an infamous novice bug, the Shadow Warlock summoning glitch. The glitch occurred when the warlocks, unable to lock onto a target, fell into a logical error, continuously summoning hounds. Each summoned hound added to the potential experience points, as the summoned creatures also yielded experience upon defeat. Jun flawlessly executed this strategy, exploiting the bug to its fullest. Now, all he had to do was wait for the right moment to strike. He laid down, deciding to take a brief rest, while the warlocks unwittingly accumulated massive experience points for him. 8 hours swiftly passed in the assessment hall, and the leaderboard underwent significant changes. Jun's name had long disappeared from the top, with the first and second places occupied by students at level 9. The rest of the top 10 were at level 8, and those who followed were students at level 7. Chubb was ranked 498th, having reached level 4. Students buzzed with discussions, particularly disappointed in Jun, who had initially reached level 3 faster than anyone else, but was now at the very bottom, still at level 3. As time ticked away, the first student finally reached level 10 and successfully transferred his class. It was Jing, who had been in second place. She suddenly surged to level 10, becoming the first to class change to a gunner, jumping to the top of the leaderboard. The crowd erupted into cheers, but the excitement was short-lived as more students reached level 10 and began their class transfers, with several becoming swordsmen. The dean nodded in satisfaction at the progress of these outstanding students. However, his expression turned to disappointment when he saw Jun's name still lingering at the bottom. The dean doubted Jun's ability to awaken his talent. Just as the spectators were discussing Jun's perceived failure, a student suddenly shouted, "Look, the last place is moving." Everyone turned their eyes to the big screen, and their expressions changed drastically. Jun rapidly climbed from last place to the 400th, then to 200th, and soon to 120th. The dean's eyes widened in disbelief, unable to comprehend how Jun managed to level up so quickly. To know what had happened, let's rewind to a few minutes earlier. No joke, Jun had actually slept for 8 hours, and he was just waking up. He stretched comfortably, then stood up. Glancing casually below the boulder, his eyelids twitched in shock. The platform was swarming with at least 400 mobs under him, and the number continued to increase. Jun was delighted as he pulled out a Gatling gun, aiming at the shadow warlocks below. Excitedly, he pondered how many levels he could gain from such a multitude of hounds. As he began firing the gun word to life, spraying bullets wildly at the unsuspecting targets. Though each bullet inflicted minimal damage, the sheer volume of fire was devastating. Soon, one warlock fell, followed by the rapid disappearance of the hounds, and then the other 2 warlocks succumbed as well. With the field cleared of hounds, golden light erupted from Jun, and his experience points skyrocketed, reflected in the frantic system notification. Jun watched his experience points rapidly increase, a satisfied smile on his face. Now this is how to level up, he thought. Taking them down one by one would have been too tiring. As Jun's level increased, so did his skills. Wave Slash's damage multiplier went from 15 times to 16 times, and his invincibility period extended from 0.2 seconds to 3 seconds. The cooldown reduction for weapons switch also improved, now permanently reducing the cooldown by 40%. Jun, exhilarated, gazed at his skill bar, pondering if his passive skills might eventually trigger 100% of the time at higher levels. The notification of leveling up flickered continuously. Incredibly, in less than a minute, Jun had skyrocketed to level 13 through his strategic massacre of the warlocks and their hounds. On the leaderboard outside, his name now soared above the former first place, marking him as the first person to reach level 13. Meanwhile, the teachers observing from outside were utterly captivated by Jun's meteoric rise on the big screen. My goodness, what kind of leveling speed is this? In just a few seconds, he's jumped over 100 ranks. The rise continues, it's unbelievable. How did he manage this? I've never seen or heard of anything like this in all my years. Jun's achievement was so remarkable that it would likely rank in the top 3 nationally. All these comments began to pour in. The teachers were stunned by Jun's sudden ascent, however. One plump teacher beamed with pride, pointing at himself and excitedly claiming Jun was from his class. Though he didn't understand how Jun, a student known only for decent grades, had achieved such a feat, he didn't miss the chance to boast. His joyous laughter was cut short when he sensed someone behind him. Turning around, he found himself facing the dean. The dean, infuriated, berated him for not recognizing such a talented student earlier. How could you miss such a gem right under your nose? The teacher didn't dare to speak up, while the dean shook his head in regret at the admission of his oversight, murmuring to himself about how he too didn't recognize such a prodigy earlier. In the back of his mind, he was certain that Jun's talents were unprecedented in the school's history. Back in the secret realm, the system voice echoed in Jun's ears as another notification popped up, congratulating him for reaching level 13. Now he can choose his desired profession and class. Jun paused, considering his options. In his previous life, he had reached the pinnacle in all professions and acquired their divine titles, except for one path he had never taken. The Classless Wanderer, a unique play style that involved not choosing any class. The advantages and disadvantages of being a classless wanderer were distinct. One major advantage was the ability to use any equipment without class restrictions, offering immense versatility in gear combinations. Classless Wanderer could tailor their gear to perfectly match their combat style. Additionally, they retained all basic skills, as other classes will automatically abandon other branches' basic skills upon class transfer. This allowed the Classless Wanderer the greatest freedom. However, Classless Wanderers never caught on mainly due to a critical issue, which is their insufficient damage output. Their multitude of basic skills, limited by not class transfer, couldn't be overcome even by someone as skilled as Jun. But now, in this new world with the transformative passive system, Jun realized he could address the Classless Wanderer's fatal flaw. With his experience and technique, he could maximize the potential of a Classless Wanderer. The choice was clear. Jun chose the path of the Classless Wanderer, ready to rectify his past regrets. Then, another system notification appeared. Congratulations on successfully choosing the Classless Wanderer's unique hidden class, the Spellbinder. In the assessment hall, students and teachers alike were abuzz with speculation about what class Jun would choose. When the screen displayed that Jun had selected the Classless Wanderer, a class considered to be weak and useless, the crowd was shocked.